All right. My name is Katie Jew. I'm a product manager and an engineer at Medium. I'm a participant in the podcast renaissance and a big newsletter nerd, which has gotten me thinking about this idea of personal media, which is something that I want to share with you all today. So if there's something that we media folk really love to do, it's debate these like existential either-or questions like platform or publisher, tech company or media company, centralization or distributed, or is it push or is it pull? And in some sense, I understand this because sort of these stark juxtapositions have a nice ring to it. And really, we're all just trying to figure shit out. And so having these like distinct boxes to help us understand things is comfortable. But really, things are not so binary, and we should be talking about them more in terms of spectrums. So the first one I want to start with is this idea of bundling and content. And it's kind of been this pendulum swinging back and forth between bundling and unbundling content, so freeing the individual things versus sort of heavily packaged pieces of information on the other end. So before the internet, everything was very, very tightly bundled. We had newspapers, we had magazines, radio broadcasts, TV shows, we bought full albums. Things traveled together, and there was a sense of context that came with that. But then this thing called the internet happened, which kind of like disrupted some stuff, or so we say, and it really unbundled things for us. The article became the unit of news and opened up the side door for readers coming in through social traffic. It was like a la carte menu instead of prefix. And so we proclaimed that this like great unbundling was upon us, and we talked about the great unbundling of media and television and music and all these things. But really, things didn't quite unbundle all the way. And so Netflix still has this idea of shows. We see podcasts that also still traffic in shows. And the idea here is that context is still really, really important, and bundles and sort of packaged content can really help provide that for consumers. So I think we're seeing this move back to bundles, and we see this both on an organizational and individual level. I mentioned podcasts before, newsletters on an individual level. We have news organizations building bundled apps like NYT Now or BuzzFeed News, all trying to sort of aggregate that experience. You might have heard terms like the filter bubble or platisher. I have a new term for you today. I'm calling it personal media, which is a thing I think we're like slowly entering into today. If we think about information and sort of the history of it, there's been kind of a few distinct phases. We had the era of mass media, which was radio and television, broadcast, and that was dominated by this idea of a one-to-many transmission model. Then the internet came along and threw everything out the window. Suddenly everything had to be about social, it was personalized, nothing mattered unless your friends or family shared it. And the main construct of social media was this never-ending reverse cron stream, the one that induces FOMO and in case you missed it type stuff, because of course you probably missed something. Personalized feeds are very different though. They're sort of these robotic things that are curated by soulless algorithms devoid of human touch or emotion, which is very different from personal. So personal media is for you as an individual. It's defined by a distinct tone, voice, and distinct sensibility. It's about pushing back on the patterns of social media. So if social media gave us FOMO, personal media will push back on that and give us a finite thing to complete and give us a sense of that completeness. So when we're talking about the characteristics of personal media, I want us to think about these sort of in terms of spectrums as well. And it's really not about like aggregating a bunch of feeds. It's just about imposing a specific lens and tone on a set of information and content. So the first is containers. Containers is the organizing principle of personal media. It's finite, it has edges, whereas the stream is like never ending and constantly the horizon is receding. You can actually finish something in personal media, like This American Life podcast. A container is made compelling by the filters that it employs. And this can be an individual, a group of people, an organization. But the role of a filter is to help us think through sort of and sift through the information that's out there on the web and knowledge and give us a lens that we choose and trust. Personal media will also start with this idea of limited distribution. Today, everything is about broadcast, about publicness, but we've kind of seen a backlash against this. So what would it look like if we started with the default assumption that not everyone will see it? And this brings us to the idea of that as a reader in a personal media product, you have to be intentional about what you consume. So similar to the opt-in model of newsletters or subscribe with a podcast, by creating this sort of like willful small intention, the dynamics kind of shift, and you as a reader are a little more likely to care because you asked for it. So that's personal media. Maybe it's a thing, maybe it's whack, but maybe something to think about. Thank you.